Okay, so this is our Child 310 group meeting. It's March 30th, and we're doing our intervention convention, and Sarah and I worked together on a PowerPoint, and we did childhood obesity. And so I'm just going to go over, oh dear, really quickly what we did for our PowerPoint. So we talked about, first of all, childhood obesity is, or obesity is defined as having excess body weight, body fat. Overweight is defined as having excess body weight for a particular height from fat, muscle, bone, water, or a combination of these factors. And my childhood obesity has more than doubled in children and quadrupled in adolescents in the past 30 years. The percentage of children aged 6 through 11 years in the United States who were obese increased from 7% in 1980 to nearly 18% in 2012. Similarly, the percentage of adolescents aged 12 through 19 years were obese increased from 5% to nearly 21% over the same period. In 2012, more than one-third of children and adolescents were overweight or obese. And overweight and obesity are the result of caloric imbalance, too few calories expended for the amount of calories consumed, and are affected by various genetic, behavioral, and environmental factors. There can also be a change in the family, particularly an increase in dual career or single-parent working families. May also have increased demand for food away from home or prepared foods. Children are less likely to walk to school and travel more frequently in cars than in generations past. And children are more likely to spend most of their free time in front of screens. And there's the immediate health effects of obesity can be, some of the risk factors are like cardiovascular disease, such as high cholesterol or high blood pressure. Obese adolescents are more likely to have prediabetes. Being overweight can impair school performance. It can be linked to asthma, joint problems, type 2 diabetes, depression and anxiety, and sleep apnea. And of course, there can be social problems such as being teased or bulliness. Bullying and loneliness or low self-esteem can also affect how well the kids do in school. Some of the long-term effects can be some types of cancer, heart disease, stroke, osteoarthritis. Obesity is associated with cancer of the breast, colon, endometrium, esophagus, kidney, pancreas, gallbladder, among lots of other types of cancer. Childhood obesity is also linked to hypertension and arterial sclerosis. And then to prevent it, some of the lifestyle habits need to be changed, like eating healthy and having physical activity can lower the risk of becoming obese.
So Karen, you're over 3 minutes.
Okay. And then, of course, just changing your eating habits, like eating fruits and vegetables and drinking lots of water, and changing your lifestyle, the way you cook, and it gives ideas of what you can do. So basically just get out there and move and can help a lot with obesity. Finding fun activities that you can do with your kids. So that's pretty much what our PowerPoint was about.
Great job.
So Kathy, are you doing it for you guys?
I can. It's not a problem. So we talked about childhood nutrition, and we did like, I guess it was kind of like a hybrid between a brochure and a fact sheet, kind of. So we talked about the reasons why people wouldn't, you know, would have problems feeding their children. Things like, like not having good nutritionist food available, or um, it being too expensive, or their children being too picky, things like that. And then we talked about why, obviously, a variety of nutrition is needed for good body strength and brain development and that kind of stuff. So, and then we had tips for picky eaters, or for good nutrition. And, we talked about things like letting the kids grow their own food and how important that is, and not expecting a child to just clean their plate, but introducing foods slowly, and maybe only expecting them to take 1 or 2 bites of a new food, and then how important it is to, like, make sure their plate looks good, having different colors and on that. And then we had some recipes and pictures of the recipes for, healthy foods for the kids that are fun to look at and might encourage the kids to want to eat. So Stacey did a really great job of making it look really, really good. So that's what we did. So that's our 2 minutes.
Catching.
That was really good. Yeah, it sounds like some people have colds.
Yeah, I have to keep muting my mic, so.
Okay, was that all for you guys then?
Yeah.
Okay.
We gotta hurry if we're gonna make it.
Then we've got the social emotional domain intervention that we researched this week. So I guess I'll just go ahead first, if that's okay. I did the risks for children who were born to meth-addicted moms, because the lady that I interviewed has 2 children that they've adopted, and both of their moms were addicted to meth. They each have different moms, but they both were addicted to meth. So the information that I found was based on some research that was done by a doctor. She said that from 6 to 18 months of age, it's a relatively symptom-free time for meth-exposed babies. She says as the toddler matures, some of the problems with sensory integration dysfunction, like a child's inability to process sensory input correctly, and there can be more trouble with paying attention, controlling anger, and having aggressive outbursts. Once the child enters a more structured school setting, learning difficulties may become evident. She says overall behaviors are consistent with those exhibited by many foster children, because obviously a lot of these children were taken out of the home because the moms were addicted to meth and were put into foster care. And it says some of the children might have problems with, like, certain clothing, like some of the fabric in their clothing or food textures. They might be hypersensitive to touch. An aversion to loud noises would signal auditory hypersensitivity, and undersensitivity to body movement could provoke a child to strive for perpetual motion. The child might benefit from a sensory integration evaluation and occupational therapy. And then ADHD or ADD can stem from sensory integration problems. And it says sometimes speech delays can happen, and those can cause temper tantrums. And then it suggests to introduce sign language if that becomes a problem. Sometimes the bedroom routine, going to bed, can strike fear in the child from being a fear of abandonment, so that can become a problem. And then as they get older, they might have some learning disabilities or poor social adjustment. Overstimulation and self-regulation difficulties have been observed in children of meth addicted birth moms. They can have less focused attention. They're easily distracted. They can have poor anger management and aggressive outbursts. And as far as intervention, I guess it depends on the situation, but in the case of my friend, she would be the best person to intervene for her children, and she's done that a little bit because her daughter, the older daughter, has had some problems in school, in the school that they went to. They actually ended up switching schools, but and they're doing a lot better now. And then if they have a social worker, like if they're just foster kids, the social worker would be a person that can provide intervention. These kids that I'm just talking about, they're doing actually really well, and they've been over to my house several times because they're in my ward, and I think they're really good kids, and I'm just really amazed at how well children can, bounce back from that kind of a trauma or whatever you call it. Anyway, but they're doing very well. So that's all that I had. What did you say, Kathy? Were you just telling me my time's up?
Yep.
Okay.
Great job, Karen. That was great information.
Thanks. All right. Do you want to go next, Lacey?
Sure. Can you guys hear me okay? Because I'm always nervous with the app on the iPad. Is it okay?
Yeah.
Okay. I chose children with special needs and their need and want to make and keep friends. And that's just something that's really near to my heart and something that I have been aware of because of some family situations, and it's just something that's really important to me. So I found a few different things on helping, because it's so interesting, because really every kid just wants friends and wants a buddy and somebody that will, just be there with them and treat them the same type of stuff. And one of the articles that I found, I really liked a couple of things they said. They said that to help your typical child to understand that kids with special needs are, just as cool and good friends too. It says to, remind them that no two people are the same. Some people have some differences that are more noticeable. A disability is only one characteristic of a person, and everyone has different likes and dislikes and strengths and challenges, and children with disabilities are like all children because they want friends, respect, and to be included. Children can be born disabled or become disabled from an accident or illness, and one of the things that said is really important is to teach your children that you can't catch a disability, because a lot of times they think, because they just don't quite understand, and they don't know if it's, like in that, they get that, or so it's important to teach them that. And this is one that I love the very most. It says, just because someone has a physical disability does not mean that they necessarily have a cognitive disability. And I think that's really true. I have a nephew who's the nephew that lives with us, and he was born blind. He has 10% of his optic nerve. And so it's been interesting because people will either talk really loud to him, like they think because he can't see that he can't hear, or they automatically assume that, like, because he can't see that he's not smart, and he's actually quite the little genius. He's super, super smart. And so I think it's important to remember that when we're around kids with special needs. And children with disabilities can do many of the same things that typical children can. It's just that they have to do it in a different way. One of the things on friendship that I found says friendships play a central role in children's relationships, and they're such high importance because having friends really affects all the different domains, because they can struggle with depression and sadness and fear and worry when they don't have friends, or they feel that they don't have that peer interaction that everyone else around them does. Sorry, I'm trying to find this other thing that I have. Friendship should be like a community-based network for the children. They should have those people to lean on and to be around. And there's this other quote that I wanted to share. I'm trying to find it. I had it pulled up so that I'd be ready to go. Okay, it says, and so this was really profound to me. It's by Andre Picard, and it's in an article that a mom wrote about the risks and problems that come along with special needs kids that don't have that opportunity to make friends. And he says, in childhood, efforts are made, but by the time kids hit age 10 or so, when cliques and social circles from outside of parental control, ostracization and isolation is near complete. And that just really is heartbreaking to me, to think that those kids are just kind of left alone, and that they're kind of treated like so different. And there's just so many things that can go into that and affect their emotions and their social competence and those different things. And so I think it's just important to remember those things and to help typical children to remember those things so that they can be friends with everyone and help that social, emotional domain of other kids who are struggling with lack of friends and keeping friends. So it's really hard to get everything in that time frame.
Good job. I know. It's very hard. All right.
Nerve-wracking. Okay. I covered everything.
I can go next.
Oh, okay. I was saying Kathy could go, but whoever, it doesn't matter.
Oh, okay. I didn't hear you saying.
Yeah, I don't think she heard me either. Go ahead, Sarah.
Okay. So I wanted to talk about the way that academics are starting to be pushed more starting in kindergarten. I actually interviewed my kindergarten teacher. She's teaching kindergarten for at least 20 years. And she said that one of the biggest problems she sees on a social aspect is that kindergartners are being pushed into academics and away from the social aspect of kindergarten. And one of the articles I found I really liked, it talked about how like parents, kindergarten classes and teachers are having to bump up their academic, like how difficult their classes are to prepare them for first grade. And so it was talking about how parents are deciding to hold their children back a year to make sure that they're more prepared for kindergarten, when kindergarten is supposed to be preparing them for everything else, and teaching them how to get used to school and getting them in the swing of like formal education from preschool. And it talked about how holding your children back may actually be causing the problem to get worse as far as academic escalation goes. So academic escalation is the fact that academics are excelling what children are cognitively ready for. So I thought that was really interesting. And it said, let me see, it said that keeping kids in preschool for an extra year to make sure they're ready for kindergarten may actually be helping the case. for the escalation in early academics and academic pressures in kindergarten classes. What I thought of that would be a great intervention for that is having children go before they're ready for kindergarten, before parents may think that they're ready, so that schools may see, hey, our kindergartners are not at the level that we expect them to be, so maybe we should tone it down a little bit and get back to the aspect of kindergarten being more of a like a socialization, learning how to be successful in transitioning to school, if that makes sense. Um, so I really like that. I think it's important that kids know how school is before they're forced into the hard academics of school, so that they can learn to enjoy school before they really have to start learning more and more, because first grade used to be where you really learned how to read, and now kindergarten, before you can pass kindergarten, you have to be able to read basic books. Like when I was in kindergarten, I think we learned the alphabet, and then we started learning how to read in first grade. So it's just interesting to see the difference now and how much harder it is. And that's about all I got.
All right. Good
Great
job,
job.
Sarah. All right. Stacy, would you like to go? Your mic is on. Okay.
Yeah, there we go. Okay, so the area I decided to look at was attachment. You know, we talked a lot about that in this class, about secure attachment especially between mothers and children. And to me, that has such a profound effect on the whole child, and in all areas, but especially socially, because, you know, if children aren't securely attached, it just creates problems for them socially their whole lives. They don't know how to be close to anybody if they can't be close to their parents. So one article that I found that really focused on intervention and helping those that don't have good attachment is called the Circle of Security Project. It was an attachment-based intervention that was specifically designed for preschool children. So this wasn't, a lot of them I looked at were more focused on infant attachment, but this one I thought was great because since we're talking about preschool, 2 to 5, that was kind of the area I focused on. So this intervention was, like I said, called the Circle of Security Project. It's a 20-week group-based parent education and psychotherapy intervention designed to shift patterns of attachment caregiving interactions in high-risk caregiver-child dyads to a more appropriate developmental pathway. And I just thought this intervention was great because it really looked at the specific interactions between mothers, especially mothers and their children, and really focused on what they needed. I'll show you if you can see this. They call it the Circle of Security. I don't know if you can all see this right here. But it was really interesting because it holds hands out and it shows that, you know, that security, it's a safe base for children and a safe haven for them to go to. And it makes it really easy for parents to understand what their role is in really looking after the needs of their children. Really easy. Protect me, comfort me, delight in me, and organize my feelings. So those are all just really important things for parents to be able to learn if they don't have secure attachment with their kids. And I love this too. There's a little box down here and here that says, always be bigger, stronger, wiser, and kind. Whenever possible, follow my child's need. Whenever necessary, take charge. So this intervention really teaches parents how to look after the needs of their children and be attentive to them and recognize that they really are the central focus for their child, and it's really important for them to be there. So that was my that was my article. There's a lot more, but I know we're kind of trying to push along, so hopefully that covers it well enough.
Great job, Stacy.
That was really good. Thank you. Okay, Kathy, go ahead.
Okay, well, so I am kind of I'm kind of glad Stacey went first because I'm kind of talking about a similar thing, which is child's temperament and how their temperament affects their social interactions. And in a lot of ways, that is directly related to how that temperament shows in their social interaction is kind of filtered through that their attachments. So children who demonstrate issues such as impulsivity and defiance in preschool are more disruptive in their play with their peers prior to their kindergarten transition and are perceived as less popular when they reach school age. So it's really important that they learn how to not be impulsive and defiant and negative and all of those kinds of things. And those negative child temperaments, even like being overly shy or anything like that, overly fearful, those can all affect their ability to have good friends and to be a good friend, to know what that means. And the articles showed how important it is that these social skills be learned at a very, very young age, that the children really don't have the luxury of waiting until they are, in school or a little bit older to develop these things, that the other children kind of pretty much make a determination about the kids, even, between preschool and kindergarten, and it's very hard for the kids to get out of that once that picture of them has been given, and the other kids have made their decision about them. So really the interventions that can be the most influential are with the parents. The children, regardless of their temperament, if they have good fit with their parents, the parents take notice of their temperament and raise them accordingly. They have that secure attachment, which is one of the things that they say as intervention, is to make sure that the children have secure attachments, because children that have secure attachments are less likely to be negative. And then the positive teacher-child relationship. So it's really important that the teachers that they have in kindergarten and, preschool, kindergarten, and first grade are positive, so that even children that are naturally negative, the teacher can make a difference in how the child relates, and then that intervention with the teacher-child relationship can directly affect the child's achievement socially. So the parents have a big role, and the teachers have a big role in what they model and in how they react to the child. So that's 4 minutes. At least he's right. It does go really.
I know.
Good job. So fast.
Okay, so the next thing was share highlights from the domain interviews you conducted with caregivers. Hold on just a minute. My other class is calling me. Okay. Oh, okay. We'll just ignore that. So I'll go ahead and go first. Really quickly, I interviewed a woman who works at a Title I elementary school. here in where I live. And it's actually the school I'm going to be doing my internship at next semester. And so the main risks and problem at this school are socioeconomic status problems, because Title I means that most of the kids are living at or below poverty. And there's most of the kids that go to this school are Hispanic kids, and they live in a kind of an area that's low economic. And then drug and alcohol issues, there's family disruption like divorces, there's second language barriers, homelessness is actually a problem. Some of the resources for the families for mental health, food, basic needs, and there's so many issues to deal with, and it should be a social worker's job, but it's been kind of put upon the school counselor and some of the other teachers because they haven't had, other people that can help them. So let's see. So I guess the interventions would be social workers if they have been able to get involved, agencies for health issues. As far as homelessness, there's a couple of homeless shelters here in this town that they can stay at. So they need food and shelter, they need academic needs, and one of the problems is if there's one or if there's more than one problem that the family has, it's kind of been a problem to get them their needs met, like, if they're homeless and if they don't have transportation, things like that. So the counselor that I interviewed just thought it would be really nice if there was just more access to what they need, better access for the kids and better access for the parents. And anyway, I think that's about it for me. So do you want to go ahead and go, Lisi?
Yeah, so this is where we're just talking about different highlights from each domain, right?
From the interview.
Yeah.
From the interview, right? Or from this week's interview?
No, from the first interview that we did, yeah.
The physical one.
Yes.
Yeah? Physical, okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I am so many things. Okay. Some of the things that I had from that one were like working on language skills, working through meltdowns, adequate rest at night, nutrition, physical growth, interacting with others, refined motor skills, and separation anxiety. And I know on the discussion board, one of the things was brought up by Sister Huffaker about separation anxiety. And I have it on physical because the person I interviewed actually has a child who had problems with separation anxiety. And one of the comments was that it doesn't create a physical reaction, but this person that I interviewed, her child did have a physical reaction when problems of separating. It was really bad. And so I think there are so many things that can happen, and children are also different, that it takes time to find what intervention type thing would work best for that child. Of course, there are things that typically work for most kids, but like with the separation anxiety, that child needed reassurance, and that mom had to really work with her and show her that it was okay. The mom would always come back, and it created fear and worry and physical worry, that I don't know if you've ever been around a kid that has separation anxiety, but it definitely is physical. So for interventions like the strengths of parents, would be the love they have for their child and knowing what their child needs. I think that's one of the best things in the intervention section is parents really are their child's best advocate, and to find what will help that child with certain things. And so another thing in the interview, it said the person said the first step is recognizing there's a problem and taking action and doing something. And the parents mostly are responsible for those type of problems because they will see them, and if it's beyond their ability, they can, get help. And my time's up. So I hope that made sense. Oh my gosh, it's so hard to get it all in. So we're good.
No, that was great. That was great. Okay, Sarah, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah. So I had physical violence as one of them because the other lady that I interviewed was, I think, 7 or 8 year olds, and she said that physical violence is a really bad problem with the students in her classes. And then some of the other things I had were obesity, nutrition, and then I also put puberty and too much emphasis on academics because I did the 6 to 11-year-old range. So for the too much emphasis on academics, like in school, I know I talked about it before, but they're not getting as much free time or as much recess to go and play and to really get up and move. And I think that's a big problem in the physical domain because I've seen studies of how like physical activity actually increases academic performance. So I think that the biggest intervention there would definitely be to allow the students to have that playtime so that they can get rid of some of the energy and maybe be able to focus more because they don't have as much energy trying to get them to get up and move around. I know a lot of people think that all children have ADHD or ADD just because they want to move, but it's because they're children and they need to move. But those are some of the biggest things from the physical that I had. And I know that's not the full time, but I know we're running short. So.
Thank you,
Great job,
Sarah. Okay, Stacy, want to go?
Okay. Is my mic on? Yeah, it's on. Okay. I guess since we're focusing on physical, I think it could be from any of the domains, but the ones that I interviewed, one of the interviews I did was a daycare provider that I work for. She does a daycare from her home, and I've been working for her for about 6 months now. And for her, the biggest thing that she has to focus on physically is to make sure that her environment is safe, because she does all the age ranges of kids. She has infants all the way up to, I think her oldest right now is 9. So, it's a big age range. And so for her, safety, physical safety was the biggest thing to focus on. Food safety, cutting things into small pieces for small children, making sure that the food is nutritious. Also, that's not safety. That's a little different. I was going off on a tangent there. Sorry about that. But she also has an outdoor play area that she has to make sure is safe for all the kids to play, because we do go outside with all the different age ranges of kids. So, we have to really guard and make sure she's got, the mats down for those that can climb. And when she interviews parents, she makes sure that they understand that, she gives them a tour of the area so that they recognize that that's a safe place for their kids to go, but that accidents do happen. In our Sue Happy Society, sometimes it's so frustrating because, yes, you want your children to be safe, but on the other hand, accidents happen. So she has a good balance there where things are set up in a safe way, but, kids are going to run and bump into each other, So anyway, so safety, physical safety was her main focus when we had our interview.
Good job.
Okay,
Good
great.
information.
All right, Kathy, go ahead.
Okay, so I interviewed a first grade teacher, and so more of her focus was on like the cognitive, obviously, with being a school teacher, and like one of her things, she also brought up the overwhelming children by forcing learning that they're really not ready for. You know, with being a first grade teacher, that she's a little bit older. She's in her mid-50s, and so she's seen the changes as they've pushed down the education, you know, to younger and younger ages, and she's seen how that affects her kids, and um, how much more difficult it is, and how they have um, you know, missed out on some of the free play and the uh, just the natural curiosity that kids, you know, that kids have. Um, but one of her big things is parental involvement. How difficult it is to get, excuse me, to get parents to like really be involved in what is going on in their children's schooling. Um, you know, getting parents to volunteer in the classrooms, to check their children's homework in the evenings, to uh, come to parent-teachers conferences or the children's programs, or, you know, those things, and how important that is, and how much better kids whose their parents are involved, how much better the kids do in school. So that's like one of her big things, is just, you know, to try to help the parents to understand how really important it is for them to be involved once the kids do get into school. You know, I think a lot of parents are involved when the kids are little, and then the kids get into school and they shift responsibility from themselves to the school, and you know, that's really not gonna make the big differences. You know, the big differences are when the parents stay involved, and I think it was Lisa that said, like, the parents are the children's best advocates. You know, and they need to stay tuned in, and I think that's true for, doesn't matter what, you know, domain we're talking about. Parental involvement is the number one most important thing. So I'll end there.
Right.
Good job.
That's good, and that's a great way to end with that, because the next thing is attempt to identify common elements of effective interventions targeted to different problems in different domains. And I think that, you know, the best person to do the intervening is the parents. Of course, there's also, you know, there's different situations where the parents can't, like if they're, you know, if they have drug or alcohol problems or something. But anyway, so does anybody else have anything they want to say about the common elements of effective interventions that we haven't already talked about? Because we've kind of discussed them as we've talked about the different domains, but
Yeah, I think we're good.
I feel like we've covered that well enough. Okay. And then conclude by sharing your best general insight or suggestion about effectively intervening to foster optimum development. I don't know. For me, I don't know if this is what they're talking about, but I mean, like in a school, you know, having good, if the teachers have people that they can go to, you know, to intervene if they need to have the sources that they need, I think is important. And like I was saying, for the school that I'm going to be doing my internship at, they're so desperate for help, and they don't have the sources that they need to intervene, you know, to help these families with all the different types of problems that they have. So I think just to be able to have those sources available.
Well, and to go along with that, Karen, is that the education. You know, one of the things that just, I don't know, it's become almost like a pet peeve for me is like there's just all this information. Like we're learning all this information. We take all these classes. We learn all this information, but it's not available to most parents in a way that is really accessible to them. Yes, I mean, as a parent, you could go on, you could find these studies, you could find this information, you know, whatever, but it shouldn't be so hard for parents to find information. And so I think that the most important thing about effectively intervening is to get this information to parents when before their parents or when their
Yeah.
children are tiny. You know, I mean, it's like you know, talking about temperament and attachment. Those things are so basic to child development, just so basic. But I think if you asked, you know, 50 parents what child attachment is, you might get one or two that even had any clue what that was, and probably none of them could tell you effectively how to do it, you know? And it's sad that this information isn't available. Why aren't we teaching parents this?
Yeah. Well, and I think just, you know, how to be a good parent. Like, as far as, I don't know, I've just been thinking a lot about, like, parenting classes, you know? Why aren't those more accessible to parents? I mean, how many, I don't hear of any parenting type classes in my community. I mean, you have to really look to be able to find them, you know? And
Well,
there's
you have to be in crisis.
yeah,
Most
you
of
have,
those classes,
exactly.
in order to take the class, you have to already be involved in CPS, or you have to have, you know, a child that is seeing the school psychologist, or, you know, you have to already be in crisis before you do this. I think, like, parents go to Lamaze classes to learn how to breathe so that they can breathe right when they have their babies. You know, why are they not then being given the opportunity to take a basic parenting class that helps them understand, you know, parenting styles and attachment things? And, you know, I mean, there's just a few basic things.
Yeah, I totally agree. Does somebody want to take the final 2 minutes to summarize the highlights from our conversation? And then I should probably get going. Does anybody want to volunteer to do that?
I said I would do it in an email earlier, but you guys are probably
No,
better suited.
Go ahead, Stacy, please.
Okay. Really, you guys just did a great summary, I think, because what we got from all of this discussion is that interventions are necessary in a lot of cases, but really people should have access to the education they need and educational materials, and parents really, like Lisi said, need to be their children's best advocates, and in order to do that, they need to have access to the resources that they need. And I think that's the main highlight that we got from this whole conversation, is that yes, we need the community involved, we need community resources, but parents have to be able to know how to have access to those resources. I don't know, I really love what Lisi said, is that it all boils down to parents really are their children's best advocates, and when parents are not able to help their children, if they have problems themselves, then we as a society and as a community need to be able to step up and help those people learn to help themselves and learn to help their children. So if anybody else wants to add to that, feel free. I tend to be kind of short when I talk. I mean...
No, that's great.
No, I think that's great. I think that's really true of stepping up to help those who, you know, can't really help themselves in the moment. And so it's
Yeah.
important to, you know, and I think, like, as parents, I know with my sister, with my nephew, she has been his advocate from day one, and she has sought out information, and she has done her work to find what's best for him and his visual needs and stuff. And I think as parents, even if it's not easily accessible, you have to fight for those things, and you have to find what is best for your child. And so I think family life education really is a great thing, because we can offer those things to parents when they need
Yeah.
them. So I think that's really great.
Yeah. Thanks, you guys. I'm sorry I have to rush off.
No
So
worries.
I'm gonna go ahead and stop the broadcast.